My name is Kathy Dunn. I am Marty Dunn's sister. Marty was also my friend. I want to tell a little of Marty's story, but before I do, I'm going to share a few stories from his friends. Marty was also a son, an uncle, a cousin. He was a friend to a whole lot more people than just me. And most importantly, Marty was a beloved child of God. Here's a few stories from Jeff Reiners. Jeff says, I knew Marty pretty well when we were kids, probably best friends from Gemmel. I remember we always had crazy ideas. One time, we tried to build a raft out of logs and baling twine to travel down Caldwell Creek. We had a creek running through our yard on our property. We thought we were geniuses. It broke apart right away, and Marty's mom came down to find 2 floating kids and a bunch of logs all over. Well, we survived the broken raft, but barely survived Marty's mom. When we graduated, we both went to the University of Minnesota Morris. Marty talked me into going with him because they gave grants if you graduated in the top 100% of your class. Luckily, we only had 20 kids in our class. So the top person was considered 100%. Then Marty was 90% and I got 95. Ha 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 ha. So I got the grant. In college, we both had the Marty and Jeff radio show from midnight to 2 a.m. on the college radio station. Well, I'd love to have heard that. And of course, all we played was hard rock. It was his favorite and mine too. This is all we listened to in his car. But we had to have a book of matches or something to wedge in under the cassette tape in his stereo or it wouldn't play. No wedge, no music. One time in college, I tried to rappel out the 3rd floor window. Marty had the great idea to tie a clothesline through my belt loop and it would work. Well, with Marty holding one end, I tried it and it kind of worked until the security guard outside caught me hanging by a rope. So what did my best friend Marty do? Any guesses? He just let go, threw the rope, and shut the window, trying to stay out of trouble. I actually only fell a few feet, but usually when I tell this story, I make it look like I fell a long ways for drama. And yes, we both did get in trouble. Marty was always a small town boy with smarts of a big CEO. Marty loved deer hunting and fishing and trapping, which to his sister's dismay, I hated those things that my family did. Marty loved girls, AC/DC, Nazareth, Judas Priest, Rush. Once again, anything hard rock. He was a devoted friend who would help you out anytime, anywhere. He loved his grandpa more than anything, and he loved our grandpa. He spent a lot of time over at Grandpa's house as a kid. I remember when he broke both wrists at the same time in basketball. Jeff says, I can't imagine one, let alone both, and it's so true. I couldn't either, poor guy. And I remember he was so miserable, and he gave Mom such a hard time. Oh, he was a bear. I'd have been a bear too, most likely. In short, Marty was very smart, always top of his class, always a good friend. It's sad how you get a family and a career and lose touch of your old friends. I wish we could have stayed in touch more. I wish I could see him right now. We have so much history when we were young. The next story is from another friend of his. His name is Jeff Fieldler. Jeff says, I met Marty when he started at GMAC and became good friends. He had a wonderful sense of humor. He would talk on the phone for hours with me after work. He helped me move twice and helped me build some shelves in my garage. Well, he basically did all the work. He would tell me some great stories about growing up in Mizpah. Marty will always have a special place in my heart. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing that. And thank you, Jeff Reiners, also for your stories. Um, this story is from Matt Kajawa. Matt, if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, I apologize. I believe Matt was a roommate of Marty's in college at the dorm. Uh, Matt says, Marty was a special person whose kindness and humor will always be remembered. Very, very nice. Matt, thank you so much for those sentiments. I'd always hoped Marty would find recovery from his alcohol addiction and tell his story. What a story he had to tell. People who go through the pit of hell and come back and tell their stories help others in untold ways. Marty was born in northern Minnesota. We were all raised in Mizpah. Marty and I are 8 years apart. I don't remember much about our relationship before I went on to college. It was Mike and I, 2.5 years apart, that I do remember, and he and I fought like cats and dogs. But I do remember Marty had an imaginary friend named Bacon. He and Bacon together would conquer the world, or at least America, in his one-man skits. It puts a smile on my face as I remember him playing, jumping from side to side, first as himself and then as Bacon, as he played both parts in these battles in our yard. Another story is that as he got older, he started calling our mother Bert. Mom's maiden name is Gilbert, thus the name Bert. So he got the grand idea to call our father Ernie after the Sesame Street character who starred with Bert. Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street. These names stuck. To this day, Mom is still known as Bert. Our father passed away in 2009, but when Marty would recall Dad, it was still always as Ernie. Marty graduated from high school in 1987. He was valedictorian of his class. He went on to attend University of Minnesota Morris. It was in the early 90s, after he graduated from college, that Marty and I became friends. In 1990, Marty had a severe car accident which almost took his life. He was attending college at that time and had the accident on the way home to Mizpah. Despite the severity of the accident, the time it took between hospital rehab and recovery, losing a quarter of the school year, Marty still graduated with his double major bachelor's degree on time. I remember another time in 1991, we had a huge snowstorm, 31 inches of snow in one drop. Marty was at my house and I had made dinner. We watched a movie. I encouraged him to stay, but he wanted to drive home. When Marty made up his mind about something, he did it, and I couldn't talk him out of it. He called me when he got home and said he could barely see the road for parts of the trip. Marty was a risk taker. I understood Marty. Of the three of us siblings, he and I were the most alike. He started sharing aspects of his life with me, asking my advice about certain things, like about women. Some of it, I must say, was quite intimate, and I really wasn't sure what to say, but I was honored that he confided in me and generally just tried to help him find his own answers. To my knowledge, there were only 3 women in Marty's life that meant the most to him. One of these in particular was the one Marty wanted to spend his life with. She remained his friend throughout his lifetime. When his relationships ended, he had a terrible time getting over them. He couldn't let things go. Marty was a deep, sensitive person who could be driven to make things work his way. Though this can be an asset when one learns to live life on life's terms, at times for him this was to his detriment. We would have long talks about this. He also talked about drinking, and at one point, though he thought he might be drinking too much, he would consult me because I got sober in 1989 and worked a 12-step program of AA. So in 93, I believe it was, he decided not to drink for a full year. At the end of that year, I gave him a 1-year medallion, which is a chip we give out in AA for certain anniversaries of sobriety. But not drinking is something that Marty wouldn't commit to thereafter. Marty talked to me a lot about his job at GMAC. Not sure when he started this job, but he started at the bottom, repossessing cars. And all the stories he would tell me, jumping over fences and hiding under other cars, oh my God, the things he would do to repossess a car were incredible. The disposition earned him many advancements up the corporate ladder. Marty had a lot of drive, and again, when he set his mind to do something, he did it. So he became a middle manager at GMAC. He would call me every time he made these advancements, all excited. And it's funny because at the beginning he wasn't sure about taking this job. It wasn't utilizing his degree. I told him he could always get another job later that did utilize that degree if he wanted. But Marty stayed at GMAC for over a decade. I couldn't believe some of the places he lived at either. There was one off Lyndale North that was pretty iffy. He also lived off Bloomington Avenue South in what he called the hood. He said he'd hear gunshots at night. One night, he said he was walking home through the alley and someone was following him. He managed to ditch whoever this was, made it home okay, but later said he had heard gunshots in the area where he had been, and he swore he heard a man dying. He said he didn't have the guts to go out and look, and he felt bad about this if someone was dying, and he just was beside himself about that. But later, during the daylight, he walked through and said there was no body or no blood. At some point, early during his career at GMAC, he moved to Waconia, Minnesota, and would commute to work. As the years went by, he became more and more disenfranchised with his job. Most of this was because he didn't like how GMAC did things. Marty didn't know how to be a middle manager. He had brilliant ideas, it's true, but upper management didn't always go with it, and this would bother him to no end. He would get ulcers over this stuff. He kept trying to put the square peg in a round hole. I would tell him he would make an excellent entrepreneur to find something he liked that gave him purpose, where he could work for himself and be the decision maker, or to seek out a career based on his schooling. I didn't know how much he was drinking at work until someone told me recently. One year, while Marty was still at GMAC, I sent a singing telegram to his workplace for his birthday. Hector Hula, a hairy guy in a hula dancer's outfit who sang some sort of Hawaiian birthday song and did a little dance jig in front of the whole office. Marty called me at work, didn't even say hello when I picked up, and said, "Don't ever do that again," while snickering a little. But I thought it was funny. Oh, in the late 90s and early 2000s, our family began to do family interventions for alcoholism with both Marty and Mike. They seem to be going down the same pathway at the same time. These were hard to do. We got professional help in doing them. Both of my brothers began to attend treatment and went through multiple treatments over the years. One day, Marty tells me he's quitting GMAC and moving up north. He didn't give it much thought, nor did he plan it very well. I'm told that he walked into work one day, told his best friend there he was quitting at the end of the day, and gave no notice, just left. He moved up north to the farm where we grew up. I remember the day. It was a convoy of all of us, friends and family, packing our cars full of his stuff and moving up there. It was always his dream to carry on the legacy of our grandfather and our father on that property, but it was a decision made on impulse. While living there, he struggled finding work. It especially bothered him that the jobs available he was overqualified for. I used to tell him that he would need to learn to do what work is available if he wanted to live there. The cloud of alcoholism began to darken. In AA, they tell us alcoholism is a progressive disease. If we do not face it, accept powerlessness, find the right support, including a higher power, God as we understand him, the disease will progress into chronic stages. Someone I knew in AA used to say, and I quote, "I never knew anyone too dumb to get this simple program, but I have known people too smart." And Marty was too smart. The decade or so before Marty's death was a merry-go-round of treatment centers, halfway houses, sober living facilities, homelessness, jail, hospitals, psych wards, detox, a couple commitments, severe physical health consequences, cognitive impairment, depression, and despair. I struggled greatly with the decision to move Marty from the Mizpah property, but in 2010 it was a choice that I felt I had to make. In 2015, with much struggle to decide, I also did sell the house and the 40 that it was on. Marty was furious with me, and I've often wished I'd have just left it alone and let it fall to the ground. It was his dream to eventually go back up there. It gave him purpose. I've wondered if selling it crushed him to the point of no return. But he also made life hell for me at times with regards to that property. It also seemed to be driving him further down a dark path. I had put it in my name to save it. I kept it as long as I could, protecting his dream. I also knew there was virtually little to no possibility he would ever live there again, given the trajectory his life was taking. In 2020, during a failed treatment, I suggested Marty move to an assisted living facility. He did move into one in Waconia, where he remained until his death. My biggest regret is that I pulled away some. I didn't know what to do. The years of battling his addiction alongside him had taken its toll. Attention on Mike and our aging mother, a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease for my husband, all changed my focus. Though we still did have family gatherings through these 2 years, as much as I could get everyone together, we did see each other. I didn't see Marty as often now as I wished I had. And I wish I had been more involved in his care and advocating for him. Come to find that we need to be advocating for our loved ones when it comes to hospitals and nursing homes. I stood beside my brother and went through every single transition alongside him as he progressed on this merry-go-round. The challenge to me was to love him, to be there for him appropriately and not enable or caretake. And I cannot begin to tell you how difficult this was. To this day, I do not know if I did the right things. It was completely uncharted territory. At times, I felt like I was living his life with him. The despair that would overtake Marty, I felt and fought against. I would pray that if God would grant me overcoming, that God would see this as Marty's victory, because Marty couldn't do it for himself. I would pray and beg God to help Marty. And I sought God and begged him to help me to do the right things and not do also what would do more harm. When Pastor Perry at the memorial service spoke of life as often being a battle, it truly is. For some, it's an all-encompassing battle, one that has taken the life of not only Marty, but also our brother Mike. Though Mike still lives and breathes, he has lost all but his life to this particular battle. I am Mike's power of attorney and have advocated for both my brothers simultaneously. Mike lives in 24/7 foster care and couldn't be at the memorial service. His brain injury is too severe. For his protection, he doesn't know his brother died. He would not be able to process such knowledge or articulate his feelings in order to work through them. At the memorial service, I said, God's grace and his love are bigger than all of this. God knows our frame, that it is dust. God also longs to gather us under his wings as a mother hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but we often do not let God. He longs to help us live in the world and be not of it by helping us navigate and overcome the pitfalls and the patterns of this world, the often destructive desires of our own flesh, those battles we face that can lead us to the kind of consequences that both Marty and Mike have suffered. Marty's pride would not let God help. Though Marty made choices, at one point the path he committed to was a path where his life was stolen from him. Though Marty did not understand that this was what was happening at that time, I would share the Bible with him. I would share Jesus' love for him. The Bible tells us an enemy has done this. The enemy is the deceiver, and he seeks to steal, kill, and destroy. An enemy that Jesus overcame and that we too can have victory over, but only with God's help. God was with Marty at his darkest hour. He was there in the secret places, in the darkness, when Marty felt all hope was lost. He is there with all of us in our darkest hour, in our secret places, and this is a comfort for me. Marty did his very best, though he was unable to overcome demons in this life that certain trauma, pride, addiction left him with. God knows Marty's heart, but God's divine logic understands in ways we are incapable of the unfolding direction our lives take and what drives us down certain pathways. We are all broken people. It's a matter of degree. We are in need of God's love to fill us and heal us. Indeed, there's no other way we can be healed. Marty's brokenness and vulnerability has completely helped me see the infinite love and grace, tenderness, and forgiveness God has for all of us, especially the most broken, vulnerable, and downtrodden. Thank you for watching, and my prayer is that telling a little of Marty's story will help others. Alcoholism can be arrested before it destroys lives completely. The big book of AA tells us that recovery from alcoholism depends on the capacity to be honest with ourselves. We do it together, admitting we are alcoholic and cannot manage our own lives, that no human power can relieve us of our alcoholism, that God can and will if we seek him. I also want to thank those who've been here for me throughout the years as I have gone through this beside my brother, and especially now in my deepest grief. God is good and he has provided. I miss Marty more than words can say. I have missed him for years. For the disease of alcoholism turned him into someone that he wasn't. My grief is deep because I not only grieve Marty's death, but I grieve the life that was stolen from him. Marty was a soft, loving, funny, charismatic, bigger-than-life person with a heart of gold. Even in this pit of grief, I remain convinced that there is no hurt too deep, no chasm in our lives too wide, that God's love in time cannot reach, heal, or mend when we completely give ourselves to him.